Come on, Eileen. Enough with that 2x8 stuff. I want to listen to the Sticks Wrestling podcast. I want to thank whatever band it was that came up with that song. But thank you for tuning in to STW, Stick to Wrestling. Give us 60 minutes, and we will give you a wicked good podcast. I would like to now bring on my convivial co-host, Mr. Sean Goodwin. Sean, how are you?
Outstanding. We've had a series of beautiful days in the Northeast finally. This is our little 6 to 8 week window of reasonable weather before the hell continues again.
Sometimes reasonable.
But to kill those days where you're stuck inside, we're on your phone. We have our fabulous Facebook group where just a bunch of really good guys who like and women who like to talk about old school wrestling. And I'm trying to do this without saying the phrase.
Oh, that phrase is gone. It's no longer a companion piece. It's a side piece.
It's a sidebar.
A side piece.
A side piece. Okay.
Yes.
So we'll go with side piece for now.
Forever, man. I love that term. All right. Anyway,
so what do we have going on for this week's show, John?
Well, before I get to that, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor at Hotbox Cards. It is a monthly sports card subscription service with baseball and football cards. All boxes contain at least 3 unopened pack, 50 bonus cards, which are only stars, semi-stars, rookies, and inserts. 3 hits, which are memorabilia and or autograph cards. If you pull out an expired redemption card, one of our packs, we will honor it with a comparable item. Our friends at Hotbox Cards are offering a one-time product called the Hot Tag Wrestling Box. It contains everything the regular box has, plus chances at autographed 8x10 photos, 50s exhibition cards, and 1982 wrestling all-star packs. Use the code, and I love this, Wicked Good, all one word, and you will receive an extra unopened pack in the Hot Tag Wrestling Box, and those are not shipping until August the 12th. Thank you guys again. I want to talk a little bit about the last show. I had a really good time with opening up the Hotbox cards. It actually had kind of a negative impact on me because when I was looking forward to doing that show, I had it circled on my calendar for about 6 weeks. And when I was done with it, I'm like, oh, great, that was a good show. I'm very happy. So then Saturday, late afternoon, early evening, it dawns on me that I have to record again in 3 days. I had literally nothing going on, no ideas. But we came up with something, and that is the Stick to Wrestling Summer Series, where we're going to talk about summer-related wrestling things for the next few weeks, like Sean said, until the weather's not good anymore. And we have a great guest for that. Poor old Johnny Ray does not get to be the co-host or our guest because we prefer the great Thomas Bane. Thomas, how are you?
John, how do you not know as a child of the 80s who Dexy's Midnight Runners are?
I liked it better just being disrespectful the way I was.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Great to be here.
Hey, good to have you on. You're always a great guest, man. So this show, we're recording on Tuesday the 16th. It comes out midnight on the 18th. 30 years ago on that day, I went to the Worcester Centrum and I saw a WWF taping. The thing was, it wasn't that bad, but it was 5.5 hours. It might have even been closer to 6 hours. And I got to the reason I went was because I knew that Demolition was going to lose the tag team titles to Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, and I just wanted to get in there and see that one live. But a couple of things happened on that taping, which set up SummerSlam, which is one thing we're going to be talking about. They did an angle where Brutus Beefcake got attacked by Randy Savage and Sensational Sherry, and they turned the tables on him. They gave him a significant haircut. And then I remember I couldn't believe it. Brutus Beefcake was kind of reviled in the sheets back in the 80s. No one liked him. And I get home at about, 2 a.m. I worked that day. I had to work the next day. Does that stop me from calling Dave Meltzer and telling him about what happened on the taping? Of course it did not. And I got to tell Dave, I got to see Brutus Beefcake in like a 4-star match. And the first thing he said was it against Savage? And yeah, it was. So any random thoughts on Brutus Beefcake from Thomas Bane?
I think Beefcake made the most of if wrestling is a poker hand, Brutus Beefcake made the most out of a pair of sixes.
Good point.
He really had little to no talent in the ring. His charisma, maybe a 5.5 on a good day.
On a good day.
Very repetitive, very, very, very canned. But he had the privilege of being the best friend of the greatest star of that generation.
That's true.
And that's why he did the then.
I will say this. Brutus Beefcake, when they essentially turned him at WrestleMania 3, I said there's no way this is going to get over. And then when I saw him as a babyface cutting people's hair for no reason, that's not cool, but people got into it, and I'll tell you what, he got the gimmick over. It got over, and I give him credit for that. Sean, any thoughts from you?
Oh, yeah. So, I'll start with Brutus, but I'll have something after this, because if I don't get to the second point right away, it will infest itself through the entire show. But by the way, your little bit of whimsy to begin with over in Worcester, that's probably the last bit of whimsy we're going to have considering the card we're about to discuss.
Yeah.
About Brutus. I just had this tirade about a half an hour ago. My girlfriend was laughing about it. Why does Brutus have his own theme music here? He has his own entrance.
At SummerSlam, you mean?
Yeah.
That's just the way they did things. Everyone got
their own entrance music. Zeus and Savage both came down the same.
Did Zeus have entrance music?
No, he just came down with Savage.
Right, because he didn't have it. I think by SummerSlam '89, that was kind of common that if both members of a team had entrance music, they came out separately. I think.
To say Brutus outpunted his coverage in his career is he looked around, he saw that Hulk Hogan was a guy. He was with Hogan in Georgia. He was with Hogan in Memphis. He was with Hogan everywhere he went, right up the line, in Florida too, I think. So
I'll say this: when he was in Portland, Rocky III had come out, and they were talking about how he was Hulk Hogan's little brother, and Hulk Hogan never went to Portland.
Yeah, I mean, so this is everywhere he went. This happened. So I'm going to give Brutus credit for being a really smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, he knew basically to stay out of the way and do what he was supposed to do. I mean, I think everyone knows this. At SummerSlam 90, or was it 91? It was 90. He was going to win the Intercontinental title, and then he had that accident.
One other thing. Have you ever heard an ill word out of Ed Leslie's mouth in regards to Hulk Hogan?
Of course not.
Nor will you. Nor will you.
Can you imagine if he just he's out of the wrestling business and he just got really old and bitter one day and turned on Hogan? That would be spectacular.
I can't even imagine it.
Neither can I.
And good for him for that matter. So
yeah. And loyalty's not a bad thing.
One other thing before I'm just going to get this over with because I've been ranting about this one for 2 days now. How bad is Schiavone? He wasn't this bad 3 years ago. I mean, he was mediocre. He's basically David Crockett with just the bad qualities and without the good looks and the fancy suits. I mean, he is bad here. Huh?
I think there's a reason for this, though, Sean. I think when Vince brought him in, Vince brought Tony in to essentially replace him. So Vince wanted a carbon copy of his announcing credo by bringing Tony Schiavone over the top, very animated, basically a complete 180 from his NWA days. And that did not fit Schiavone one bit. And the problem with that was when he finally quit and went back to WCW, he took those bad habits with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to ask. This is where I was going with this. I was going to ask you about it is that now that I was thinking about Tony going there, every announcer in this era, all of them, no matter how good they were, when they got to the WWF, they got worse.
Oh, yeah.
All of them. And I was going to say, why was the reason for that? Is it because they basically tried to shoehorn the guys into the Vince mold? And Vince wasn't like that. Vince wasn't crazy back then.
And I think what it is too is these guys are coming from territories that are coming from the NWA, where they're sort of kind of, playing it as they go. They're not having Vince barking in their ear the entire time. So at some point in time, these guys are like, you know what, the hell with it. I'll just make the guy happy and he'll leave me alone.
I mean, he is uncomfortably bad in that he had no chemistry with Jesse. And is it weird that I'm starting to find myself agreeing with Jesse in almost all the commentary not involving Tito Santana?
I'll tell you what, I can name one announcer that got better in the WWF, because Rod Tron, there was no such thing as worse than AWA Rod Trongard. They wouldn't let him name all the people in the production truck, name every city in North America, etc.
Well, fair enough. I mean, if someone was there and came here, everyone seems to get worse. Like Gene Okerlund was better in the AWA.
Oh yeah.
Jim Ross was better in Mid-South.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Ross in the WWF at first was depressing, and then the Raw era came along, the Attitude Era, and he got a lot better. But at first, he was terrible.
So, John, how do you want to do this? In chronological order from beginning, or which match appalls us the most?
I'll tell you what I would like to do. There are three guys who are not on the card that I want to have a brief discussion on. Dino Bravo. I never understood this guy's push. He went from first I was shocked when they brought him in as a heel. Then they turned him. Yeah, they put him in the tag team with Valentine. That tag team goes sour, and all of a sudden he's getting a huge push. And I just didn't get that one. Any thoughts on Dino Bravo, Thomas Bane?
They gave up on the Dream Team really quick. And I don't know if they just want to get rid of Johnny Valiant, because typically they would just run a tag team into the ground and figure it out. So I wonder if they just kind of pulled the plug on Johnny V and then just let them go their separate ways. Although Frenchie Martin might have been one of, if not the worst manager in WWF history. There was really nothing for Dino until Jimmy Hart came into play. And really even then, only as a sidekick to Earthquake, which would have been a few months after this program. So Dino really was languishing at that point in time. And if you look online, there are a few videos from, I believe it's International Wrestling Challenge from 1992, where Dino is back in his natural hair color as a babyface.
I forgot all about that.
Run.
But
I believe if the network ever pulls it up, there's a primetime wrestling segment with Brunette Dino.
I had forgotten all about that, but I can tell you why the Dream Team broke when they did. Valentine's contract was expiring, and he was kicking around the idea of going back to JCP. I know Flair wanted that, and Vince basically told him, look, we'll give you a renewed singles push after the Survivor Series. And they did. They gave him that gimmick with the shin guard. And I'm not saying he was a main eventer, but he was in a better position than he was, before his contract was set to expire. So that kind of put Bravo in a position where he didn't have anything until McMahon started pushing him hard right around late 89, fall 89.
Well, Greg did I think the only thing Greg had in that push was a relatively clean win over Steamboat in WrestleMania 4, which turned out to be Steamboat's farewell, so you got to kill two birds with one stone there. But really, I would say hindsight 2020. I don't know what Greg's going to get in the NWA or anywhere else. Was he better staying in WWF and getting the paychecks? Probably, because even if Greg becomes the Fourth Horseman or whatever, you saw the writing on the wall, even with Barry Windham coming in there. The Horseman had a very short shelf life. Then what do you do with Greg then?
I agree. Greg knew what he was getting in the WWF, and why give up a good thing? All right. Next guy, Bad News Brown, was still in a decent position in the WWF. He had gone around the horn with Hogan already. He had gone around the horn against Savage, but he was not on the show. And I think it was just a numbers game with him as far as, hey, we can't get everyone on the show. But I really liked Bad News Alan Coolidge as Bad News Brown in the WWF.
I would have much rather see Bad News Brown against I would have much rather seen Bad News Brown against DiBiase than Snuka.
Two heels, though.
Was there ever a time, and I can't remember off the top of my head, I know, Bad News lost around the loop with Savage and Hogan, but did he ever take not a fluke finisher, but did he ever take the leg drop or the elbow or anybody's finisher in defeat on television?
I don't think on television.
Really protected. His entire run, he was completely protected. Even his pay-per-view matches with Duggan or Jake the Snake, he was all the way to the very end. He was protected.
Yeah, I actually agree with that.
And I wonder if
I mean, when he was in,
they had.
No, go ahead, Thomas.
Go ahead, John. I wonder if they had Bad News Brown kind of like a break in case of emergency sort of challenger where they want to keep him strong, but they had no intention of doing anything big with him, but they don't want to job him out and ruin him at the same time.
That makes a lot of sense. I was going to make a joke about maybe they were making up for him being a complete jobber in 1979. But, Sean.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, going back to my kind of, putting him in with DiBiase can turn anybody face. Could you turn him face and have almost like a Steve Austin type face?
Totally. I thought it would have made a lot of sense to turn him.
Because, that would be the guy. Because at this point, Ted's can turn anybody.
He turned Hercules.
But if you turn Bad News face, does he become a lot like Big Rob though?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. Like, and you would have had the badass black guy baby face, which I think would have been successful. I actually thought WCW should have brought it in. But you have to have him as a heel first.
But the difference would be is that it'd be more aggressive than what Jake was.
Yeah.
Jake always seemed kind of it's a different kind of thing. He was more of a kind of a laid-back man. What was the Bill Watts thing? An island of myself or whatever it was. It was kind of like that where, someone like Austin was more aggressive and kind of sticking his nose into situations, stuff like that. I'm more picture him like that.
I could see it. Totally see it. The third guy who was not on this show. Yeah, the third guy who was not on this show, and I don't think wrestler ever fell any faster than Barry Windham did between like summer of 88 and summer of 89. He came to the WWF. We all thought we were going to see, him be the lead heel in the WWF, and it just never happened for him. He never got any traction. They gave him that terrible, the Widowmaker gimmick. It wasn't even a gimmick. They just brought him in as the Widowmaker Barry Windham, and then they stopped calling him Barry Windham, and he was just another guy.
I might as well put this in here. I might as well put this in. I'm looking at which spot I want to put this in. I might as well have it here. Is Vince either suffering from some kind of a burnout, or is it some kind of an arrogance? Kind of like that Bill Belichick, Richie Caldwell. Arrogance, like, I don't care how bad the talent is or how whatever bad is, I'm going to make it work. Because he starts the feud between Rick Rude and Delta Warrior with the pose down. Really? Why did they have a cake and a trophy there too?
No, I see what you're saying. I mean, and the thing is too, I want to bring this up. The lead heels in the NWA obviously were the Four Horsemen. They were kind of the centerpiece of the promotion. And now Vince has 3 of those 4 guys, and he almost brought in Ric Flair right around this time. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. That was the year before he almost got Ric Flair. But, I mean, here we are, and they bring in these 3 acts from the NWA. One of them is just another tag team. Yes, they were the tag team champions, but like that wasn't the plum position that like Randy Savage had. And Barry Windham basically is a bust. So it kind of really made the NWA look major league. Minor league, that's what I meant.
Once Vince got his foothold into wrestling, not when he broke in 84, 85, because he's still bringing in Piper, Orndorff, Schultz, everyone else. But once he was the game in town, he was very adamant that if you were a star in another promotion, you would essentially have to get over all over again. Hence the Widowmaker, hence the Texas Tornado, hence Mr. Perfect, so being called Kurt Hennig or Terry Von Erich or Barry Windham. He wouldn't allow you to get over based on your old merits. You may get introduced as your previous gimmick name or your real name, but you were going to get some kind of cartoonish name to be that way. If you were over in Vince land. And also, more importantly, if you did get over, then Vince owned the Texas Tornado. He owned Mr. Perfect. That way, you became a megastar and went back to Ted Turner. You were just plain old vanilla Barry Windham again. So
that is,
I think, a way. And I'm surprised they didn't call Arn Anderson the Enforcer and Tully Blanchard the Prick or whatever it was, and didn't give them their real names. Because you look at how it was, and I assume the only reason Tully and Arn came as their real names and as a team was a promise Vince had to make to them. I'm sure Vince made no real grandiose promises other than a paycheck to Windham or to Hennig and Carey. That's pretty much all he had to hope for at that point in time. But make no mistake, it was Vince's arrogance that you were not going to be a previously built star and coast to fame on what you did 18 months prior.
That is true. There's another aspect to it, and that is by this time, the WWF was really going out of its way to be cartoonish, and Vince would just rather give someone a cartoon name than bring them in as Curt Hennig or Barry Windham, etc.
One other to go back to your Greg Valentine point about how they kept him. I think this is affecting his booking here too, because why is he fighting to keep Greg Valentine? What's he going to do with it? It's a defensive maneuver. He's doing that just to keep him away from WCW. But what does he think they could possibly do with Greg Valentine at this point?
I mean, probably nothing. I was saying this at the time that if Crockett brings Valentine in and gives him a big push, he's living in 1982. But at the same time, you know what? I understand what you're saying. Valentine had been there since early 1984. We're almost 4 years into it. Why not just let him go? I think it's because, and this is probably why Greg stayed as long as he did, he was just a reliable, good guy to have around. And at that point, let's face it, it's 1989, the wrestling business being what it is, that's worth something. But you have a reliable guy who shows up and does what he's supposed to do.
But unfortunately, you got to do something with him now.
I think John's right, though. I think one of the biggest factors might have just been, if you're running 3 or 4 towns a night, you need warm bodies. And you need guys who aren't going to stink the joint up and kill the town.
Yep.
And Valentine, if you're going to, he's not breaking the bank. I'm sure he made a nice salary for 1980, 89 purposes, but he's not making any kind of top tier money. And I mean, he's probably getting a good, percentage of the house show cut. Well, whatever house show run, they're working 300 days a year. So why not just keep him and just, pay him when he is and make his house show runs? Because really at that point in time, is it going to behoove you to bring in Sika and Terry Gibbs to cover all those dates?
Exactly.
You're pushing the pay-per-view angle with Greg Valentine and Ron Garvin in 1989.
More on that later, but I mean, it on paper, it was actually better in the ring than it was on paper, and I personally wasn't excited to see that. But you gotta have somebody out there. They lived up to their promise. They did something with Valentine, at least for a little while. I think it worked out for all parties involved.
I think you're taking up space where you don't need to be here. It's I don't think Greg Valentine's going to help. I understand you need the bodies for the shows, but I mean, you don't have to have these guys on pay-per-views and on TVs.
No, you're right. I mean, I think part of it too was they had just gotten Ronnie Garvin. I know they had signed him before AWA Super Clash. So he was still fairly new and probably just gave him something to do.
Why are they bringing in Ronnie Garvin?
Good question. I mean, he did fairly well there. He did everything he was supposed to do.
Oh, it's no dig on Garvin. I'm just quiet. It's unnecessary.
I wonder if Ronnie wasn't, because once Ronnie left the NWA, he was very close with guys like Savage and guys like Andre. I wonder if a favor would be calling for him to come in.
Good point.
Yeah. Especially Andre, because they got to be tight. Well, actually, Bo has said he's there tight, but after the beating he took on camera for Ronnie,
no, that's exactly
they close. Yeah, that was probably the phone call.
But you know what? I mean, to finish what Thomas was saying, I mean, Vince is running. He's running A, B, and C shows. I mean, they need guys.
I don't mind having them around. Do you remember what they used to do back in the 80s? You'd go into I don't know, Indianapolis or something, or Milwaukee, and you pull out the Bruiser or something, just for a spot show over there, and that way you'd be able to stretch out the cards to 3. I mean, you can't do that each time, but I just don't see why you have to have 40. And I like Ron and I like Greg. I just don't know why they, at this stage in their career, need to be taking up pay-per-view time.
Yeah,
I'll say this: you're still running the 2 hour and 40-minute pay-per-views. At this point in time, Vince, I hate to use this term, it's kind of dumbed down the audience, where you're not going to see a 25-minute match very rarely. You're going to see a lot of 7-minute matches. One guy goes over the finisher. C'est la vie. Putting this Garvin Valentine program in there, it's 2 veterans, 2 guys you can trust, and more importantly, it's 2 guys who are going to take up 12 to 15 minutes of TV time. And now you don't have to rely on Hart and the Brainbusters going 30 minutes. You don't need to have Andre in the ring for 12 minutes. You don't need to have Hogan and Zeus going for half an hour. They're putting time in there. Nobody bought the pay-per-view for Garvin and Valentine. It's a bathroom match, it's a popcorn match, but it's something to watch in between. Nothing more, nothing less. I
am in agreement. So with that, let's talk about SummerSlam, which, let's be honest, it took place late August 1989, and the entire summer kind of built towards that. So, what was the first match, John?
First match was the aforementioned Mr. Blanchard and Anderson versus the Hart Foundation, and I have no idea what the hell they're doing in this match.
The Hart Foundation?
The whole match is bizarre. The Hart Foundation had 99% of the match, and then they get Arn got a fluky win at the end, and it was a non-title match, despite the fact that Arn and Tully were the champions.
All right, that's weird. They might have announced it before they put the belts on Blanchard and Anderson. But let me ask you guys this. I don't know if you've heard of this before. I guess there used to be some sort of a rule with cable companies where if you purchase a pay-per-view event and you decide, I think it was the limit was 15 minutes into it, you just say, this – what's that?
It was 5 to 15. Yeah, they would give you the first 5 to 15 minutes, depending on when it was, for free.
Okay, and that's why the WWF went out of their way to have a hot match open up. And this was a good match, by the way, I thought.
Yeah.
So that no one called the cable company and said, this stinks, just turn it off, and they didn't have to pay for it.
Oh, it was a very good match. It was just strange how they did it. But that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. You're right.
Thomas, go ahead, man.
I never knew that you could actually have the buyer's remorse callback to the cable company back then. But I did know up until, I would say the early 90s, 92, 93, you could get the first, like Sean said, 5 to 15 minutes for free, and then it would go right into Scramble Vision. Because you would always think, because it would always be about 5 minutes. And if you didn't order it, you'd be like, okay, maybe they screwed up somewhere, because it's now minute 7, minute 8, minute 9. And then bam, we'll just go right to Scramble.
Yeah, I usually got them. And it's funny, nowadays, pay-per-view isn't even really a thing anymore. Well, it is. And if you want to buy something on pay-per-view, you just push a few buttons and you get it. Like back then, you had to call somebody. And I think if you called, not day of the show, they gave you a $5 discount. It was weird. You actually talked on the phone and said, yeah, I want this.
I just stuck with seeing the first 15 minutes of every pay-per-view.
I remember being as a kid, you would always hear Mean Gene in the promo saying, make your call today, don't get left behind. Because legitimately, these pay-per-views were all ended up on Sunday. If you called your local cable company, if it wasn't a big, TCI, Comcast, whatever it was that had a nationwide call, so you called a local place, they might not be open on Sunday. So you almost had to call, before Friday at 5 o'clock.
I actually, no, but believe it or not, they actually had people in the offices. I know this because I actually applied for a job for a pay-per-view company here in Nashua, and they told you, hey, you're going to be working weekends because that's what you're going to be doing. I didn't take the job. But yeah, I mean, Arn and Tully had just won the titles. They were a hot tag team. The Harts had recently turned babyface. Like 88 was their babyface turn. So I mean, it looked like a good match on paper to me, and it was a good match in the ring.
Did they have a long-term program? Because this seemed like it could have been these four could have been really good together. This is kind of when I went into my dark period a little bit, kind of probably because of this.
They kind of bounce around everywhere, I think. They never really, I mean, they went the Rockers for a little bit, Demolition. I think, honestly, the Hearts was probably if you want to call it, I always considered it a one-off match, really.
I think you're right. And you got to remember, too, Brett was being used a lot as a single. And looking back, he was being groomed to be a single star. The Hart Foundation weren't a night-to-night tag team the way Arn and Tully were, the way the Rockers were, etc.
So, okay. Any other thoughts on that match?
Not me.
So next up, we got, and I have to say, when I saw this match, I'm sitting there thinking, could Wayne actually get a pinfall on Virgil? Is it possible that is going to happen in this universe? We have Polka Dotted Dusty coming down against the Honky Tonk Man.
Let me say this.
Things change.
Okay, I just want to get this in real quick.
Change, the more they stay the same.
That is 100% true. Let me tell you guys a quick story. I'm not going to tell you who this was, okay? But I was at a wrestling event a WWF wrestling event at the Providence Civic Center. I ran into a wrestler that I knew, and he seemed not to be in a very good mood. And he's like, "Johnny Mac, come here, I need to talk to you." And we go into like a secluded area, and two other wrestlers follow this guy. And this guy's big on TV, and you have no idea how big he is in real life, especially when he's pissed off and breathing down your neck. Because what do you know about Dusty Rhodes coming here? And I'm like, oh, he's coming. I was talking to Meltzer a couple of days ago. He's on his way. And he's like, you're sure? I'm like, I'm positive. And he was pissed. He's like, the whole reason I came here was to get – his words, the whole reason I came here was to get away from that fucking asshole. And the two guys with him were in total agreement. And, like I said, it was not fun breaking that news to this guy. But everyone hated Dusty. I'm talking the newsletters. I'm talking everyone in both dressing rooms, WWF and WCW or the NWA. And at some point, Vince McMahon sent a memo to all of the wrestlers saying that, Dusty is to be treated with professionalism and respect, which means, he knew something was coming. And from what I was told, Dusty got really comfortable really fast in the WWF, and not quite by this time, probably by fall, winter. He was supposedly bossing around everyone in the dressing room just like he did in the NWA. So there you have it.
One thing about why polka dots? I know they're going to embarrass them, blah, blah, whatever like that, but why? Was it a humbling?
Absolutely. It definitely was. And Dusty denies this. There are people out there that deny it. Get out of here. They were putting it to Dusty. Dusty needed the job, and they were willing, hey, and I'll give Dusty credit. He got over despite that ridiculous gimmick, but make no mistake, they were going to make him look stupid, and they did.
But more importantly, this is also Vince's bargain to the rest of the boys in the locker room who are going to make us think about Dusty having coming in and him going, I'm going to humble him first.
I mean, maybe. I know someone who tried to get a job as an announcer in the WWF in 1991, and they make you do all kinds of embarrassing stuff, like hop around on one foot and tapping the top of your head as you're doing it. So you have to be willing to show them that, you're not going to say no to things. I think this was the ultimate thing with Dusty, especially with those skits they had him doing when he was the plumber. Thomas, your thoughts on Dusty? Yeah.
Well, not really, but if Wayne Fairs had actually left with the Intercontinental title in 1988, how quick would the Dusty have squashed him? 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? So it's kind of ironic that Dusty's first major match, and he essentially beats Honky Tonk Man, clean in the middle. Which at that point in time, in the fall of '89, Honky's circling the drain right now. He hung around till I think the early part of '91, but the fastball was gone on Old Wayne Ferris at that point in time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this was, Honky's role was getting smaller and smaller in the WWF, and right around this time, maybe in a couple of months, they put him in the Shake, Rattle, and Roll tag team with Greg Valentine and that ridiculous dye job Valentine had. But yeah, this was kind of the end of Honky Tonk Man as a major player in the even a remotely major player in the WWF.
When I was watching this match, I was thinking, because we had discussed this before about a match coming up next, and it was a gentleman who had a very bad gimmick. So as I was thinking about what you were going to say here, I'm thinking about these two, and they were given, even Honky, even Wayne. This is not an easy gimmick he was given here. He made it look easy, but they both made it work. And I kept thinking this was going to be my argument, and then I saw it again. And I was like, I have never seen anybody look so miserable in my life than Terry Taylor coming down the middle to the ring.
Yeah, there are people in this world to this day that said that, it's Terry Taylor's fault that he didn't get that gimmick over, because if you're a really talented wrestler, you should be able to get anything over. And I'm like, look, they booked him. First of all, they started by Bobby Heenan making him look bad at every turn. Then he gets beat up by Steve Lombardi on the Primetime Wrestling set. He gets into a feud with Steve Lombardi, but wait, then they give him that red hair, and he cockles around, like a chicken, and the hair isn't even it's not like punk rock cool. It's just stupid. And then they have him lose to Kurt Hennig, on a pay-per-view while this turn is still new. He didn't have a chance. I don't care what anyone says. If you thought it had a chance, you're just wrong. I'm sorry. Thomas, what are your thoughts? I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead.
Oh, just one. I couldn't even get to the match. I got to the intro and I had to fast forward it.
Ugh. And he was such a talented wrestler. I will not back down from that.
Terry Taylor's career in the WWF is interesting, because he started out as Terry Taylor, obviously. He wrestled, I believe, in that Supercard show in Milwaukee against Kurt Hennig. It was actually booked as Kurt Hennig versus Terry Taylor. And shortly thereafter, they put Taylor in a tag team with Sam Houston, and I can't remember who they lost. Maybe the Conquistador. They lost to somebody, and Taylor turned on him.
Right.
And at that point in time, they built Terry into a heel and became the Heenan family. He became the screw up in the Heenan family because they hadn't done that kind of gimmick yet. And somehow they turned it into the Red Rooster. And I don't know if it was because they said he was the cock of the walk, or he was cocky, or some kind of terminology there, and it played off of it. But there's two schools of thought to it. You look at somebody in modern day WWE. I'll use Fandango for example. Now that gimmick should be right alongside the Red Rooster is Dead on Arrival.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow that guy pulled it off. So I think there's a two schools of thought argument. There's no right or wrong answer to it, because sure, I think you can pull off any gimmick, but at the same time, you can't be world champ with every gimmick.
No, I agree with you. And by the way, Louis corrected me. It's rhythm and blues, not shake, rattle, and roll. Yeah, he's right.
So, I mean, it's really nothing much more to say about that match. I think Taylor got an injury here at some point, but I mean, he looks miserable. Just you see his eyes going down to the ring, and I mean, but there is something to be said for that though, because he wasn't buying in. And I know I say that like, how the hell do you buy into that? Mm-hmm. But how do you buy into polka dots on your ass?
Good point. I mean,
how do you buy into having a pompadour in 1988?
Ugh, a red pompadour. I know.
And it works. So, I mean, it really has something to do with the fact that if you could get yourself to believe in doing it, you can make it work. That's why I kept going back and forth. Man, it looks bad.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. Like, we're comparing Dusty. Dusty supposedly got to handpick or at least have a major say in all three of his feuds. He wanted to go up against Boss Man. He wanted to go up against Randy Savage, which was, the opportunity at the time. And then he handpicked Ted DiBiase, supposedly. And, maybe Ted Taylor would have gotten over huge if they put him up against the main eventer. But they didn't.
Terry Taylor wasn't going over huge if they put him in with Hogan. You could see it in his eyes. He wanted nothing to do with this. He was miserable.
I don't blame him.
Oh, I don't blame him either.
It's not so much the leading in it. By that time, what other viable options were there? Dusty had burned his bridge over in NWA. He had tried to run his own thing in Florida and try to take over there. He failed. Really, this was Dusty's last shot in the major as a competitor.
Absolutely.
Something else was passing his drive. Terry, I'm sure, being a cocky person by nature, and this is speculation, probably thought, I'll do my time here and get the hell out. And I'm going to phone it in because I'm not going to be typecast for that Rooster. Well, too late.
It was too late. Supposedly, Taylor, not supposedly, he left the NWA like November, December 1987, and he was working Dallas and Memphis in that, between his NWA and WWF runs, and he was just not making any money. He was just not in a position to say, no, give me something good or I'm going to stay where I am. He wasn't going back to the NWA because he had heat with Dusty Rhodes. I think he had a little bit of heat with Ric Flair too. And this was his only viable option in the wrestling business.
So, that was depressing. Next up, we have the Split Strike Force with Rick Martel and the Rougeaus versus the Rockers and Tito Santana. This was a hell of a match.
It was a good match. It was kind of weird. It's a bit of a throwaway match, but it was a good match nonetheless. I mean, all six of those guys were. I have a quick story regarding Rick Martel and the Rougeaus. This has the word supposedly written all over it, okay? Supposedly, in early 1986, Dino Bravo and Rick Martel were basically running the Montreal office. And the Rougeaus come to them, and they're like, hey, we need to freshen up a little bit. We have an opportunity to go wrestle in Southeastern. Can you let us have our contracts, please? And Bravo, who's basically running the thing, said, yeah, sure, come back in about a year. And the next thing you know, the Rougeaus are on WWF TV getting pushed hard for Montreal shows. And I think it was Jacques that Dino Bravo called. And the story I heard is that for years, Jacques Rougeau was looking over his shoulder after speaking with Dino Bravo, who had a little bit of a rep. And supposedly, when Bravo came in, I think he came back the end of 86, like the Rougeaus had to go out of their way to make nice with him. And Rick Martel was the partner in Montreal, so now you've got these three guys in the ring together.
You guys have talked about in the last couple weeks, months, about the WWE Network's hidden gems. One of the hidden gems that I really want to see, they did a series of 60-minute Iron Man matches between the Rockers and the Rougeaus in 1989, and I don't think they have ever seen any kind of either online platform or video platform or anything like that, and I can't imagine them being anything short of incredible for that time.
I agree. The Rougeaus were really underrated as far as their ring work goes. They were really good. The only other thing I really have to say about this match, one of the biggest surprise turns ever was Rick Martel turning heel in 1989. Like as far as I know, he'd never been a heel before. I just never saw him in that role. But guess what? He was pretty good in that role. I really liked him.
I feel like they really left a lot on the table for that breakup. To use a match in WrestleMania where the team hadn't been together in almost a year, They're getting back together and are going to go against, Tully and Arn. They turn on them. And then what did they really do? They would have a couple of moments of fisticuffs in a battle royal, these tag team matches, Survivor Series matches, and then maybe a one-off match on a Saturday night's main event. It seemed like they really kind of deflated the balloon on this feud before it actually happened.
I actually agree with that. And you know what? The turning of Martel, the more I think about it, something that Thomas brought up, it's like the same thing with the Widowmaker. They want Rick Martel to be something that he never was before, kind of divorcing him from what he used to be, like they did with everyone else.
So we will scoot on to the next one. We have the Intercontinental Championship, Warrior versus Rude. The Warrior ages badly. I mean, I remember this being bad, but when I watch it again now, it's uncomfortably bad. And the match is bad enough, but the promo with Gene is, what is he talking about? He's like looking to the sky and talking. How did this get over?
I don't know, but I will say this about the Ultimate Warrior. There is a myth out there that Vince McMahon saw this guy in Dallas, brought him in, and had every intention of grooming him to be the world's heavyweight champion. And it's just not true. When they brought Warrior in, they had no idea what to do with him. He was not getting pushed. They put him on the road with Harley Race because they saw a little potential in him, and slowly but surely he worked his way up the card. And I think he wasn't a good worker. He was a terrible interview, but he got over, and oddly enough, I think he deserved everything he got, every program, every title, etc., until maybe 92 when he really hit the wall. Thomas, thoughts on the Ultimate Warrior?
I kind of wonder about something here, because typically Vince, who got it from his father, really looks long-term for everything. And now, granted, they didn't know what Warrior had when he came in, I believe, the summer of '87. You can tell they really didn't know what they had with him, because there were certain matches, there was a battle royal in the fall of '87 where he just gets dumped out nondescriptly, like Bob Orton or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But once they realized what they had, do you think they reshuffled the deck and gave Warrior the push they originally wanted to give Tommy?
You know what? That's a good point. They very well might have.
Fantastic. The gift of Tom McGee just keeps giving.
Rude was another guy. They brought him along slowly. When he came in, they had no plans for him, no idea what they were going to do, and they saw something in him, and, hey, he got over.
I always thought that they gave Harley Race to the Warrior as a sort of a pay receipt to Warrior, because when Warrior first came on the scene, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he basically injure Frankie Martin to the point where he couldn't wrestle anymore? He destroyed his shoulder.
I had not heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe that explains Frankie Martin as a manager.
If you're sitting at home watching
Frankie Martin wrestle Warrior.
I mean, I hadn't seen it. I hadn't heard that story before, but I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
If you're watching a Warrior promo like the one they had here with Mean Gene, and somebody who's not a wrestling fan walks in the room, what is your likelihood of changing the channel real quick, hoping nobody saw it?
Very high. Before we go on to the next match, they had an intermission. Remember those?
5 minutes.
Yeah, and they had Roddy Piper come out and do an interview. Now, Piper had, there was talk that the NWA was really interested in Roddy Piper, and there was mutual interest back in '88 and '89. And just to give you an idea, on the NWA's television, the commercials for They Live, the Piper movie, which, by the way, is a really good movie, would run, and the WWF would not let them run. They made it clear to their friends in syndication they do not want that movie commercials airing. So you would think, okay, well, maybe Piper would kind of look at the NWA a little bit more favorably or whatever. And to be honest, I think they thought both when Crockett owned it and then when the Turner owned it, they they both thought they had a real shot at Piper, and I just never think they did. I think he was always going back to the WWF if his movie career did not work out, which obviously it didn't.
One quick question before.
I think you're totally right, John.
One quick thing about this interview. Is there anything wrong with Piper here? He seems in a strange mood.
He's Piper. I mean, I think I know what you're saying, and yeah, he's Piper. What are you going to do?
Okay, because I mean, he was a little more incoherent than usual.
I mean, he just come back. It was I think it might have been his first interview, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, and who knows, maybe.
So did they actually have big plans for him, or?
I mean, I don't know if they knew they had big plans for him. I mean, he had come in and he had substituted for Jake Roberts a couple of times. He did a couple of refereeing spots. But let's face it, if you have Roddy Piper coming back after a 2.5-year hiatus, you're automatically going to have big plans for him at this point.
But I wonder, at some point, I don't know if it was 89 or 90, but Piper did the pilot show, the police drama show with Jesse Ventura. I think it was ABC maybe. It's either 89 or 90. So I think it was 90. I wonder if Piper signed in 89 with the expectations of being a quote-unquote special attraction. If, his Hollywood career blows up, he can kind of walk away freely, and he would only sign if Vince kind of gave him that thumbs up. Because I can't see the NWA with Crockett or Turner having the platform for Piper to go into the ring and work these Saturday night shows, working clashes, working pay-per-views, and bumping up to the stratosphere like he wanted to in his mind. And I think he probably only felt the only way he could do that would be with the WWF.
That is an excellent point because, I mean, by this point in time, let's face it, the WWF was the major league and the NWA was the minor league, and that's why the NWA had to spend money, in my opinion, to get a guy like Piper to prove that, hey, we can get someone to jump from the NWA, from the WWF to here, which is what creates a major league image. I will say this, it's just a feeling I have that if Piper had signed on with the NWA in 88 or 89, I think he would have been the next Jesse Ventura in 1992. I just have this feeling that he would have just phoned it in and it would have been beneath him, etc.
The show, what was the guy's name? Tricky Rick McDonald and something Youngblood was the other guy's name. The crime solving wrestlers. This wasn't close, was it?
I have no idea. I remember seeing it once, and it was terrible.
I mean, the pilot actually made air, I think.
Oh, it just looks so bad.
I don't know if I saw it live. I had tape of it, but I remember watching it once and just shaking my head. I mean, I know television was generally bad in the early '90s, but this really stood out.
I'm just picturing Piper going to one of these guys going, well, I got to consider your offer, but I got this TV thing going. And what Vince is going, the wrestling crime fighting thing? Okay, yeah, I'll wait. You get back to me on that. See how that works out for you. I mean, that can't be that could not be
Piper Pit.
Yeah. Okay, so our next match is this mess. It's Andre, Bossman, Akeem versus Demolition and Duggan. Quick point on Andre, because this goes back to Rude. They were showing a little highlight clip thing with Warrior and Rude, how the whole thing started with the pose down, of course, because we haven't run that one out before. And they did this one bit where Warrior held up Rude and then dropped him on Andre. Well, it didn't work out that way. Andre whiffed on him completely, so Rude just hit the pavement. Then, in the attempt of getting out of his way, Andre falls over backwards.
Andre was not doing well at this point. He was a kind of a sad sight. I know by this point he was getting around airports in a wheelchair. I mean, that's how immobile he was. That's how in bad shape he was. So
he's a hazard at this point to him and the people in the ring with him.
I cannot help but... Go ahead, Thomas.
Forget about, his health concerns here. But when you look at how he was booked through 87 and 88, sure, he lost to Hogan. Everyone did. He couldn't get the belt back from Savage. We can forgive that. But once they ran the Jake the Snake heart attack angle with him, by SummerSlam 89, is he at the point now where he's ineffective in his position as a monster heel or even as a heel in general? Is he just another guy that happens to be a giant at this point?
He's quickly morphing into that. I mean, he was doing main events in B-towns in early 89, middle of 89. They had the Jake angle. They brought in Stud. Stud quit, so then the people were lucky enough to get Andre versus Hillbilly Jim as their main event. And then they moved on to Andre versus the Ultimate Warrior, which is what they were doing primarily at house shows now. And the matches were ending anywhere between like 20 seconds and 60 seconds because Andre couldn't do anything. And that's not a very good main event.
He nearly fell over getting into the ring.
Yeah.
In this match. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, you can't have a guy at that weight, falling down all over the place. If he lands on the wrong thing or wrong person, God forbid, then, I mean, someone could have a horrible injury at this point. I mean, he really is a hazard at this point. It's not just like in 87 where he looks like he's in a lot of pain. He just can't move anymore.
No, and they kept him around full time. They kept him around until the next year's WrestleMania, that's when he finally just, they put the titles on him and Haku a little bit later in this year, and then they I guess as a going away present to Andre, and then he was done in the ring for the most part after WrestleMania, after the 1990 WrestleMania. But wait, it just jumped in my head that you were using him in Japan after that. Andre just didn't want to give him up.
No, if you remember, even in 91, late 1991, there was talk about bringing Andre back. He had the surgeries. He came back for WrestleMania 7. And then it was like Andre's going to pick a manager. And then Andre didn't pick any of the heel managers, so Earthquake jumped them. And they were going to consider doing Andre Earthquake as a program, but Andre was just too short at that point in time.
No, he was I remember 91, he was in the Bushwhackers corner for their matches against somebody. And he was in on, what was it? Not canes. He had two walking canes. And he just couldn't move. It was embarrassing. I don't know why he just didn't want to go home and enjoy the rest of his life because, Andre would be gone pretty soon, early 1983.
Yeah, I'm saying Vince or these guys, for the protection of his own people, has to tell him to go home.
You're probably right.
Well, that's what caused the resistance, because around that time, once they decided Andre and Earthquake couldn't happen for a myriad of reasons, Vince kind of said, okay, we're done. And then he was never seen on WWF television again while he was alive. In fact, he was at the Clash of the Champions 20th anniversary show, which supposedly, broke Vince's heart.
I hadn't heard that before, that it broke Vince's heart. I mean, just Vince, there's got to be two ways to look at it. Like, yeah, you expect some loyalty from Andre, but you're not using him anymore, and he has an opportunity, and you know what the guy's like. He likes the lifestyle. He doesn't want to stop being Andre the Giant. I don't know.
Well, I don't think he wanted to, quote-unquote, send Andre home. I think he kind of wanted to do what they wanted to do with Flair 10 years ago and make him just the ambassador of the World Wrestling Federation.
I can see that.
It's the only role at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple matches. We'll see if you guys have any quick comments. We're running out of time. I want to get to the main. Valentine versus Hercules. Going.
The only thing I can say about this is Starrcade 86 was supposed to be Ric Flair against Ronnie Garvin in a match where Garvin, if he lost, he would retire, and he would have lost and quote-unquote retired but come back as a referee. So it was interesting that the WWF used this angle.
Thomas?
It was entertaining for what it was. I mean, really, Ron Garvin had, in the cartoonish WWF of 1989, a guy as tough as he is, as much of a rep as he has, when you look at the WWF viewing audience, which is, primarily kids, and they see a guy who's 5'8" being dwarfed by Joey Morella, then I really don't know what basis of use he has in terms of success.
Yeah, I mean, they gave him this one program, and after that, he was just another guy. And I remember he did a clean job to Sergeant Slaughter on TV on his way out a couple of years later. So, I don't know.
Okay, so we go to I Could Care Less, so we'll move on. We go to Ted DiBiase and Jimmy Snuka. Boy, Ted must have loved this, John.
I mean, it was just another pay-per-view match. Ted went over, excuse me. DiBiase, as talented as he was getting a little bit stale at this point. Jimmy Snuka returning to the WWF in 1989 was a major, major shock. The WWF they were capable of shocking us, but this was a big one. But at the same time, Snuka really did draw well for a little while on the B shows and the C shows. If you're in, some high school gym somewhere in the middle of Nebraska, not Nebraska, but like Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, and Snuka's in the main event, he was still a draw.
Yeah, but given the problems that he had, and it's not as if when he left the WWF in 1985 he fixed himself. Those problems were still around. Mm-hmm. So if you were just going to have him headlining in high school gyms and putting your mid-card stars over, is it really worth the potential headache?
Possibly not. I know what you're saying.
I mean, I hate to say it, but isn't that why you have guys like Ronnie Garvin and Hercules and Tito Santana there anyway, and Coco Beware? You already have these guys who are established. Why bring in a potential catastrophe, literally and figuratively, in Jimmy Snuka when you have no real basis to happen there other than selling out a few fundraisers in high school gymnasiums?
I have the answer for that. The wrestling business was inherently reckless in 1989. I mean, that's really all there was to it.
I'm absolutely with Thomas on this. This is madness. I mean, I'm complaining about having Valentine there. At least you're not going to have anything completely crazy with Greg. Not like with Snuka. You have no idea what Snuka's going to do here. I want nothing to do with them. You may get a pop for a couple weeks, but after that, who knows? You can't control them.
I mean, they got away with it as far as I know. As far as I know, nothing major happened. So I guess, like I said, the WWF was always full of surprises. And in a way, even after everything that happened in 85, I am still a little bit surprised that Crockett never brought him in. Not that he was any good, not that he was any good in the AWA, but I'm still a little bit surprised that Crockett never had any interest.
To tell you about Jimmy's rep,
there must have been something. That especially, but that's the thing too. Usually Vince would just bring guys in so other promotions couldn't have them. I think Jimmy had napalmed his last bridge in the major wrestling business to where Vince could have just sat back because he had burned his bridge with Vern. Crockett hadn't wanted him. There's really nothing else. I can't see, anybody on a shoestring budget like Jerry Jarrett or Don Owen or anybody like that taking a chance on Jimmy at this point in time. Why? It makes no sense. Forget about the booking perspective of it. It makes no sense from a business and liability perspective. Because right now you're going to have a guy booked as your headliner in these high school gyms, again, as the main guy who might show up. He might miss 2 weeks in a row. Roll the dice on him.
No, I mean, you're right. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that the rest of the business was reckless. And probably Vince said to him, Jimmy, your first no-show, you might as well, you're going home. I mean, he had to have said that after what went on in 83 and 84.
Yeah, I think Vince is the one who needed the humbling at this point because there's definitely kind of a hubris going on here. Speaking of hubris, Here's the main event. We have Hogan and Beefcake against Savage and the newest graduate from the El Gigante School of Hard Knocks Wrestling, Zeus. He is bad. I mean, I remember him being bad when I saw him then, but he is real bad. Is this the worst main event on a major show up until this time?
Oh, man.
Without question.
I mean, the only guy who's even respectable here is Savage, and his needs are tapioca pudding at this point.
I'm trying to think of a worse main event.
Not on a pay-per-view at this point in time. But maybe the Wrestling Classic, but that's kind of a schmoz with JYD and Savage, but that's still better than this. But the question I have is, you've already ran the Zeus angle on Saturday night's main event on the taping before this with Beefcake. No Holds Barred, I believe, came out in June or July. So by the time this program had aired, this pay-per-view is aired, the movie's already is out of theaters practically.
Mm-hmm.
What is the general purpose of doing this? Why not have this, be parallel to the movie's premiere or the opening weekend? Why wait 2 months to have this? Why not just do it on a Saturday night's main event, build up the program on tapings, and then pay it off that way? Because at this point in time, those who saw the movie have watched it, they probably don't care. And now you're just basically having Savage do all the legwork, and then you're throwing Beefcake in there because you got to put Zeus in there. It's again, once again, business perspective. I can't see the logic in it.
I don't even understand what was the feud about. Did Tiny have the larger dressing room? I mean, was there a stunt gone awry? I mean, what was the whole point of the animosity outside the movie?
They played it right off the movie, Sean. It was basically, Zeus was Zeus. I mean, they basically they kayfabe the movie is what they kind of sort of did.
I was trying to hope it wasn't as embarrassing as I remembered it being, but it is.
It was almost like the movie was real and it led over into the wrestling business. But one thing I want to get in, because we are running out of time quickly, the level of resentment that the wrestlers had towards Zeus was nothing short of incredible. In the wrestling business, I'm sure it's probably gone by now, but all the guys talked about, well, not all, but you know what I mean, was paying your dues. I paid my dues, brother. You've been in the business 6 months. I paid my dues, brother. And Zeus obviously had not paid his dues at all. And I get it when a wrestler who has been in the business for 10, 15 years and has traveled and has done everything that a wrestler needs to do, and all of a sudden this guy from the outside comes in and gets a huge push and a lot of money. And this is bad. But I was hanging around with 3 WWF wrestlers, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that they said this at least 100 times. They called Zeus a cross-eyed expletive that you don't call a black person. 100 times, probably more like 150 I had to hear this. And it's like, okay, but no one liked Zeus. Everyone was incredibly angry at him getting that push. The main event itself, I mean, whatever. People bought it as a main event. I didn't like it. I thought it was the height of WWF stupidity. I kind of got a kick out of Sherry getting her haircut at the end, but, they didn't do with her what they did to Beefcake. But like you guys said, the whole thing was bad, and it represented a new kind of wrestling that didn't exist 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh, and one other thing that I liked about the main event was with when Hogan was roughing up Sherry at one point, and Jesse's sitting there screaming, "This is abuse! Why are you cheering? What are you people doing? What's wrong with you?" And they're all laughing at Jesse like he's wrong, and I'm looking at him now like, you know what? Jesse's the voice of reason now.
It was a different world in '89. Guys, we got to get out of here kind of soon. Thomas, thank you for being on. Any parting thoughts?
No parting thoughts, but I just wanted to quickly mention here that somehow you would think that this debacle would be the end of Zeus, but Zeus got 2 more pay-per-view paydays out of this. He was in Survivor Series, I do believe, on the Ted DiBiase team. Mm-hmm. And then the unforgettable No Holds Barred, the movie, The Match, where they showed the movie and then showed a dark match TV taping cage match with Beefcake, Savage, and Zeus. One more cash grab before they finally put this baby to bed.
It was the year 1989 that WWF was just like this weird year of this, like, I don't know, not even a movie star, a guy who was in a movie and everything was built around him. Thomas, thank you for being on as a guest. Sean, thank you for everything you do for this show. I want to thank everyone for listening, and I want to especially thank Lou Kippelman for producing this podcast, which has been a presentation of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. We'll see you next week.